Welcome back. The U.S. Congress is not in a rush to fund it, but in her interview with Jeanine Pirro, President Trump insists the wall will be built.
You going to build that wall?
We're going to build the wall, absolutely. Is there a question about that? There's no question about it.
That from just a few hours ago. That same issue came up with Tucker and Univision anchor Jorge Ramos.
Jorge, thanks a lot for joining us. So the president's border wall, you have basically implied that the presence of such a wall is an attack on all Latinos everywhere and, in effect, racist. My question is, why is the idea of a wall illegitimate? Why is the idea of protecting your border somehow bigoted?
No, I think every country has the right to protect its borders, but I think immigration is a complicated issue. It's an economic issue mostly. It has to do with supply and demand, and we are responsible for that. All these immigrants are not coming because they want to go to Disneyland or because they want to kill Americans, as Donald Trump has suggested. They come here because there are thousands of American companies hiring them and millions of Americans who benefit from their work. So we are partly responsible for that. On the other hand, the wall is completely useless because almost 45% of all undocumented immigrants come by plane or with a visa. So Donald Trump says that he's really a smart and good businessman, but that wall is not going to do anything at all to stop immigration.
Well, if 55% don't come by airplane, that's the majority. So, I mean, it's not entirely insane to think that if you could get a handle on that, the overwhelming majority of illegal immigrants right now in this country came over our southern border through Mexico. They're not all Mexican, as you know. A lot are. But that would shut that down. Walls have worked in a bunch of different countries, including Israel, whose wall we helped pay for because it actually worked. So maybe your real fear is that it would be too effective.
No, actually, there's no invasion, Tucker, and that's the interesting thing. The undocumented population has remained stable at about 11 million for the last half a decade. That hasn't changed, and as a matter of fact, more Mexicans are leaving the country than coming to the United States. So there's really no invasion. In other words, whatever we're doing at the border somehow is working. Some of the safest communities in the United States are along the border. So I don't think a wall is really going to help. And the last time I checked, we're not at war with Mexico. And Mexicans, by the way, are not going to pay a single cent for that wall. There's no way they're going to do that. Okay. Donald Trump can say whatever he wants, but they're not going to pay for that.
Do you adopt this attitude at home? Do you have locks on your doors at home?
I do, yeah, of course.
Well, are you at war with your neighbors?
I'm very civil with my neighbors, but
why do you have locks on your
example.
Doors?
Yes, and I think every country, and I agree with you, every country has the right to protect its borders. However, immigration is a really complex situation. We are complicit with immigrants. Immigrants are here because of us.
Wait, hold on. Wait, just back up for a second. Yeah. You just said you have locks on your doors, though you like your neighbors. You're not at war with your neighbors, but you still lock your doors at night. You probably have a security system. You may even have a wall around your house. I don't know. Why? Why do you lock your doors?
Mm-hmm. What you are suggesting...
No, I'm just asking a simple question.
Yeah, but what you're suggesting, Tucker, is that we got to be fearful of immigrants because they're criminals. And if you listen to Donald Trump, they're gang members and drug traffickers and rapists.
This is nothing about Trump. I'm just asking you why you lock your doors.
Yeah, just to be secure. Yeah. But again, if you were trying to imply that accepting refugees and immigrants means that they are criminals and rapists and drug traffickers, that is absolutely not true. Again,
that's not. Hold on. You're debating someone who isn't. You're debating someone who's not here. I'm not suggesting that. I didn't say that. I merely said that the attitude, and my implication was what you thought it was. Your attitude is the one that we should have about our country. If you care about something, you want to secure it. Doesn't mean you prevent anyone from entering. I'm sure you have guests in your home, but you decide who they are. And you don't want people to come into your house you didn't invite. Why is a country any different from that?
We did invite them. But I'm sorry, you're making a mistake. We did invite them. We are telling them, you know, please come here because we need you for the service industry and for the agriculture industry.
Who's we?
Next time you and I and everybody listening right now.
I don't remember sending that invitation, actually.
Let me tell you something. The lunch that you had today, it was harvested by immigrants. The house or the apartment where you live, it was built by undocumented immigrants, most likely. Immigrants babysit our kids. They pay taxes.
What are you talking about? I eat Swiss cheese at my desk. Look, you're missing the point.
Okay, they do pay taxes. They contribute much more than they take out from social services.
But
we invited them. We need them.
What you're doing is arguing. Okay, you're arguing a parallel argument. I'm not saying that illegal aliens in America don't do useful work. I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm not saying they're all criminals, because they're not. I'm just saying, as a theoretical matter, and then as a practical one, a country has a right to determine who comes in. Not big corporations who are profiting from it, not Walmart, not ag interests, but the population. In a democracy, that's voters. And voters want a wall because they want to know who's coming in and who isn't. So why would you deny them that?
Well, I mean, you can say that about the wall, and I can also give you another poll by the Pew Research Center that says that most Americans, even Republicans, want immigration reform. In other words, that we want to make sure that the 11 million here have the possibility to legalize their situation. So,
okay, but that's again, that's a very different point. And by the way, immigration reform is whatever you want it to be. It doesn't mean anything. It's a term that can include anything or nothing.
It means a path to citizenship.
It may or may not mean that. It depends upon the deal that they strike. But I'm talking about border security, which is something very specific and which the overwhelming majority of Americans want. And why wouldn't they want it? And your argument appears to be that because some big company benefits from cheap labor from Oaxaca, the population of the United States doesn't have a right to stop people at the border and ask, hey, who are you? What are you doing here?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, and probably is the same thing that you believe, is that the immigration system right now does not work.
Well, that's
the way
obvious.
it is right now does not work. And we just got to find a better way. A best way, I think, it would be a legal way in which instead of having about 500,000 people coming in illegally every single year, that we could have them coming here legally. That's why you have that's why you have immigration reform. That's why you have agreements with Mexico and Canada. That's what I support. However, that's not what I'm hearing from Washington and from the Trump administration.
Does it bother you as a progressive, as a man of the people, as someone who represents his viewers, and I've heard you describe yourself that way, that you take your immigration cues almost purely from big business in America, from the Chamber of Commerce? You're basically saying exactly what they want you to say. You're a lackey for the capitalist class here. Does that bother you at all?
No. What I'm saying is that immigrants come here partly because of us. They come here to work with us,
who is us
and for us. It is, again, it is you, and it is me, and it is millions of Americans. Of course it is you.
I don't employ anyone here illegally, and I don't care to.
Indirectly, you do. Every time you go to a restaurant and you're paying your bill, you're paying partly to undocumented immigrants who are in the kitchen that you don't see. Every time that you go to a hotel, you are paying in your bill to the people who help you with your room and cleaning the hotel and help you in that hotel. Yes, you do.
So what you're arguing
we
is...
are paying indirectly to undocumented immigrants every single time.
But I don't
all the
want...
time.
No, this is really simple.
You don't want to recognize it. But we are supporting undocumented immigrants.
Oh, so I don't have the moral standing to criticize it? Is that what you're saying? So until I stop eating in restaurants and don't participate in the American economy, I can't criticize it? What if I don't want to live in a system with a permanent illegal serf class that is being taken advantage of by employers and is a burden on our social welfare system, all of which is true? What if I don't want that? Is that okay? Or can I not say anything because I ate at Arby's last week?
It's fine if you don't want to. The fact is that the undocumented population is already so linked to the system, especially with agriculture, with the service industry, that it is almost impossible to take them away. There's a movie, a really interesting movie, A Day Without Mexicans. It would be like a day without immigrants. It would be simply impossible here in the United States.
Okay,
I mean,
so
we couldn't function without undocumented immigrants.
We can't have a wall. Look, nobody, again, just to be totally clear, nobody is attacking the nobility and decency of the overwhelming majority of immigrants who come here, legally or illegally. A lot of them are great people. Probably most of them are great people. But it doesn't change the fact, I believe that actually, it does not change the fact that they're breaking American laws voted on by representatives that we voted for, and they're subverting our democracy as a result. This is not what the majority wants, and it shouldn't be allowed.
They're breaking the law because of us. No, we are all complicit here. Okay. They're breaking the law because of us, Tucker. That's why they are here.
I'm not complicit. You may be, Jorge. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tucker and Jorge, thank you for that. They are negotiating round 2, so stay tuned when that happens.